Cool. So I'd like to welcome you, Maëlle, as one of our keynote speakers for user 2024. And so we've put out a chance for people to ask questions for this fireside chat. And we had 10 people respond, sorry. So that's been a fantastic turnout. And so maybe I can just ask you to give a little bit of introduction to yourself, because you've had a really interesting career, I guess, with a common theme of helping people build better data science products.
So I currently work for rOpenSci, which is an organization that supports open and reproducible science. So that's one part of my work. I also work for Syncra, which is a data science consultancy based in Switzerland. And then I also have various contracts supporting research organizations to build packages. So about rOpenSci in particular, so rOpenSci has various projects, as its most famous one would be our software peer review system, which is a system where we review packages submitted by community members. So two external people review the package as what happens with the scientific articles. And we have that for general science life cycle, but more recently we added standards for statistical software. We also have the iUniverse project for building and publishing packages, as well as discovering packages from a user point of view. We run community calls, we have a blog, so many different projects at rOpenSci.
Okay, cool, thank you. And maybe sticking with this theme, so the first question we had was, can you talk about a time when peer review through OpenAI really transformed the package you were working on?
Yeah, so I found that question very interesting, because the first one that came to mind was most spectacular transformation, in a way where a package that went for peer review was split into two packages. So because both reviewers advocate for the package to be split into more data sources and the infrastructure, so that would be one thing. So in that case, it would be hard to argue that it's not a big transformation, but really transformation of packages for peer review that went from very small scale stuff, such as changing the test and scripts organization, to maybe things that are more on the interface level and bigger, like changing the function names, the argument names, and the output, maybe outputting a data frame instead of a list. So these are not like really big, but they can be like, first, there are a lot of work to implement, and they are also a big change from a user point of view, like they are change that have a big impact then on the user experience.
Okay, thank you. And I guess another question that was quite close to my heart, and something I've come across many times, is when you start a package, you don't always know it's going to become a package later that's shared with others. So the question was, experiments and collections of single-use code turn into packages. Do you have tips on how to move quickly, but set yourself up for success, not knowing what could end up as a package?
Yeah, and I think we never know, right, what's going to end up as a package. Like, it happens to me too. Like, I spend a lot of time writing or contributing to packages, but sometimes I write scripts and then they have to become packages. So that's just something that happens. One thing that helps me is that I always namespace my functions call. So this is a small thing, but like that's something that helps me when I have to transform them into a package. But I think that's just life, that you will have to transform scripts into packages. What I can recommend is a new chapter in the R Packages book by Hadley Wickham and Jenny Bryan, a chapter that is just on this topic. So it's called The Package Within, and they describe how you go from a script to a package, like with an applied example, but at the end there are also a few general ideas about what's different between scripts and packages, such as you cannot use a call to the library function, or you have to be careful when some code is going to be executed. So that's really a great read to know when you want to go from scripts to packages. And then, there are very small things. For instance, you have to list your dependencies in a description file. So that could be sort of like a bit of a pain to go through your scripts, extract the dependencies, but there are tools to do that. For instance, the attachment package by the Thinker team, it will help you list your dependencies from scripts to the description file. So that's also something I would recommend checking out. Do not do too many manual work when transforming scripts to packages.
Okay, thank you. And I guess one topic that often comes up when it's a statistical package is, are the stats actually right? You could have a unit test, but the unit test is also calculating the wrong thing. So maybe jumping to the third question. So knowing the stats are right in a package is really difficult. What are your thoughts on when you compare your package output against other R packages, or even other tools like SAS or East or similar.
So first of all, caveat, I don't do much statistics myself these days, but what I can speak about is at OpenAI, we now have peer review standards for statistical packages. So that could be an idea, like using packages that conform to such standards that have been reviewed by other people, like the fact that not only a single person has written the code, so bugs might have been caught more easily because of there being a second pair of eyes or even more, and the fact that the standards that have been developed for statistical software review are very good and can attest to some effort. And there are other organizations that do work in this space, like there is the R Validation Hub. Bioconductor also reviews their packages before they are onboarded into their repository. So that's for bioinformatics, but that's very interesting. So that's what I would recommend, like trying to assess that the package you're using as such standards was reviewed, use these things. Yeah.
Okay, and maybe throwing one of my own questions in. So I come from a regulated industry, and like for us, double programming is the standard if we want to make sure a function is working. Is that something within our OpenSci? Like,
So what do you mean by double programming? Sorry.
So two people independently try to program a solution without knowing what the other's doing and check they get the same answer.
Okay, yeah. No, so peer review is a different approach. Like you read code that has already been written, so you do not try to. But I guess that's a complementary approach or pair programming. Yeah.
Yeah, a resource intensive, I guess, alternative. Yeah, so maybe on this topic of great R packages or making great R packages, I guess for somebody who wants to write a good package, but it's maybe their first package, the next question is the R OpenSci review process a good way to learn how to write good packages, or are you expected to know how to do that already?
Yeah. So I think that's the peer review system is how I learned how to write better packages. So I submitted packages years ago and they were not as good as what I would write now. I'm not even pretending my packages now would be perfect, but I can see the difference on myself. But first of all, when if you're interested in package development, you don't have to wait to discover the OpenAI peer review system. Like you can learn the basics elsewhere. But what we do have is a development guide, the development guide in general for a software peer review system and for the statistical software as well. So reading this would already give you some insights into what we think are good practice and give you some ideas to implement in your own work. Now, to participate as a reviewer in our system, you do not need to be a very advanced package developer, very experienced one, because what we try to do as editors, when we select reviewers, is to pair like maybe someone who is more of an experienced package developer in whatever field, and then someone who has more of an insight on the topic of the package itself, like who could be a user of the package. So, and if you do that as a reviewer, then you would learn more about package development by reviewing, and because you will be looking at code, but also because you will have read the packaging guide, as one of the tasks of the reviewers is to assess whether the package conforms to these standards. So that's one thing. And then as an author, when you submit a package to peer review, it has to pass some checks. So there are some things you will already have to have implemented. You will have read our packaging guide. So there are some things you will have changed in your package, but you will learn through the review process from the reviewers, from the editor. And even as editors, we also learn from authors from what we see in packages and also from what the reviewers write. So, yeah.
Okay. And where do you recruit the reviewers from? And like, is this kind of, in terms of time commitment, is it similar to reviewing papers for a journal, or?
Yeah, which means it's very viable, right? Yeah. And again, like when you're a first-time reviewer, it might take you more time also because you're so new to all these standards, and afterwards it becomes shorter. One project that OpenAI has that I haven't mentioned at the beginning is our Champions program, which is a program to help people from historically excluded groups to participate in open source. And one of the projects they can choose when they apply to the project is to become a package reviewer. So that's one way we have recruited reviewers very specifically. So that's one thing. And then you can volunteer as a reviewer by following a form that is listed from our website, where you indicate your topics of interest, your expertise, and other things that help then editors when they're looking for a reviewer for a package to filter through the people to get idea of people to contact to become reviewers.
Okay. And we had another question, which I thought was quite interesting, because it was more about how you're using R to help our OpenSci run. So could you maybe talk a little bit about some of the packages you've built or used our OpenSci to make your activities easier? The example the person gave were peer reviews, publishing the blog, or organizing community calls.
Yes, it was a fun question, because of course we are an organization that uses R a lot, so we tend to use that internally as well. Just to know, on peer review, we have a bot for peer review that helps us with labeling the issues, some of this stuff. This is actually coded in Ruby, not in Ruby, sorry. Whatever, yeah, Ruby. But in any case, we do use our scripts and packages to help our work. So for instance, we have this Mastodon posts that are scheduled. So this is work done by Steffi Lazert. And for that, she has written scripts and workflows that she's actually transforming into a package now. So see, that happens to everyone. So that's one place where we use R. We use some proprietary tools for organizations such as GitHub, Slack, Gmail. So we have scripts to move information from one place to the other. For instance, to send invitations to our Slack workspace to people that have participated in our OpenAI in some way, such as peer review. So that's one aspect. Then, so some of this stuff is internal, but we're an organization that is quite interested in open source, right? So we try to document our workflow. So for instance, the Mastodon scheduling workflow, this is something that has been documented in a tech note, or the package that we use for blog posts for checking the URLs. It's actually open source, so you could check it out and try to maybe adapt it to your use case.
Okay, cool. No, it's very cool to see so much of the infrastructure being also built in the language. Yeah, and then I guess, so another question we had was, from your perspective, how can someone stay updated with the best practices in R package development?
Yeah, so first I would like to say, why would you have to stay up to date? Like you could, because once you've learned how to develop a package, things do not change that much, and the principles for good design, they sort of stay the same. So what does change is the standards. For instance, at our OpenAI peer review, we might have a new standard recently with added suggestions to have different ways to make your functions more or less verbose, so that, and CRAN can also introduce new policies. You also have new tooling being developed. So if you're submitting your package to CRAN, you have some URLs that do not work anymore, and you do not know about the URL checker package, then you might lose some time because you do not know there is this automatic way to fix the URLs. And there are also some new guidance. So maybe there is a new book out there or a new post that you might want to read to learn things that are already out there but that you didn't know about. So what I would recommend is to subscribe to the rOpenSci newsletter, which is a bit of a subjective idea, but in the rOpenSci newsletter that we send out each month, there is a section called Package Development Corner, where we list such things such as new policies, new posts that we've seen, and that can be quite useful, or at least that's what we hope. Then another interesting thing that you can do every year is to look at the list that the Tidyverse team at Posit puts out in the use this package. So they have these functions called use tidy upkeep, I think, and it gives you a checklist of things to change in your package. Like it can be very small, such as update your GitHub Actions workflows, or align, or bigger, like such as align your R scripts with your test files. But this gives such an idea. Then I would recommend subscribing to blogs. When you see a nice post about package development, maybe you can add this post to your RSS feed. I said some new books are being written. So for instance, there was a new edition of the R packages book. So that's something that's very nice to read. Hadley Wickham is working on the Tidy Design Guide. And to go with this work, he created a newsletter. So you can subscribe and get emails from time to time about new chapters. That can be a way to keep in touch with this idea, and really compared to reading a whole book at once, it's a little bit at a time. So.
Okay. And I guess the example you gave from the tidy team of checking your package, it reminded me of the first time I tried using a linter package and essentially ignoring everything because it told me everything I was doing was wrong. But I guess, do you use these packages? Like, would you use these kind of automated checks and stuff?
Yeah, and I very glad you mentioned linter because it's so good, right? And keeps getting better, getting new checks. So yeah, and when you can run all the linters at once on your package, which is maybe what you did, and it's always a very but it's nice because when you're on a day when you don't want to, you don't have the, I know you're not in the mood for doing something very creative in a way. This gives you a list of things to do. It's something that will be productive. Is going to make your package better, but you don't have to. It gives you the roadmap to follow, so that's very valuable. And the linter package, even just looking at its reference page or its news file, I learned so much. Like there are functions I didn't even know about. Like there is a NENA function in R, which I didn't know about before I read about it in linter. So yeah, that would be a way to keep up to date, or in this case, it's not even a new function, just like renewing our knowledge of this function.
Yeah, cool. And maybe another of my own questions, sorry, but I guess, in the backbone of R, there's a lot of packages that lots and lots of people work on. And then you kind of, in the peripheries, there's many packages where it's like one person. And I guess if you are wanting to go through something like the peer review process and then also hopefully attract other people to work on your package, I guess, do you have tips for people who maybe have been working independently and are now putting it out there and hopefully trying to find others to work with them?
Yeah. So first of all, if you ever get a contributor to your package, then you have to be very nice, because that's a nice thing to do, but you want them to come back. So that's the first tip. Like, be nice to your contributors. Like, there should be a nice atmosphere to work in your package, because this person, if you're not nice, might not come back. But like when I want to contribute to a package, I will go and read all the issues and PRs, and then you see the tone in the repository, and you want to come back or not, depending on that. And then there, you can add a code of conduct to your repository. You can add a contributing guide to explain how, if there are things you want to do, maybe that are different from what other people use, or maybe there are some special aspects of how you write tests for your package. So that would be one thing to do. On GitHub, you can use a help wanted label. That's and the first time, I don't remember the name of the label. There's a label you can use to indicate that an issue in your repository is good for first-time contributors. So that, and you want your contributors to find a repository. So when they read the documentation, or when they go, if it's on CRAN, to the CRAN page, you should make sure that the repository URL is listed there, so people who might want to contribute know where the source of the package lives.
All right, cool. Yeah, and your comment on the label for good first contribution, one thing I really like in the Farmerverse is that they collect from all the packages in the Farmerverse, they collect on one page all of the issues that have that tag, and it's quite a useful place for people if you want to see where you could jump in. Yeah, and so I guess you answered this question for maybe like the people that are trying to stay at the top of their game and write really good R packages. But there was a similar question, which I think was more focused on like, what's the minimum required reading list? And so it was, if somebody wants to have a quick and short reference list of what to consider when building your app.
I feel I'm the worst person ever to answer this question. I read the old dev guide. Every single line is important. But I know there are people that are working on such a guide from OpenStatsware, but I think they haven't published it yet, but they're working on such a list of minimal things such as write tests for your package.
Okay, something.
Or you could run the good practice package on your package, or the package. So I would say we have a package, an R package to check whether the package are fit for peer review. It's called package check. So maybe you could run that. So maybe that's not that minimal, but you could run package check on your package and see there are some things you have forgotten about.
And a lot of the tools that you've talked about today, if someone goes to the rOpenSci website, would they be able to find these tools on the website?
Yeah, they would even find a list of help-wanted issues, like on the Farmerverse. We have that on our website as well. Yeah, you should be able to find everything, and if not, then you can contact us if there's something you cannot find. What we have, and that's very important, is we have a contributing guide. So if you want to contribute to rOpenSci but don't know how, you can also find ways to do that.
That's cool. Yeah, and then I guess there are a few questions more about kind of how our OpenSci works and open source in general. So I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of great work coming from our OpenSci, but one of the questions was, how are they funded?
Yeah. So we're funded like entirely by grants and donations. So that's so that's how it works. For instance, our Champions program was funded by the Chan Zuckerberg. I forget what the I is, Institute, and so CZI. So, and if you want to donate to OpenSci, we have a donation page on our website. But a way to support our OpenSci as an individual are donations or contributions. So you can do either of them as you can.
Okay. And so another question on a similar theme was, are you positive about the future of open and reproducible science? And if so, why? Otherwise, why not?
Yeah. So that's funny because I feel like, again, here, I don't feel like a good person to answer this question, because working at our OpenSci and interacting with so many people in the open source and open science world means that I have a very biased view of of these things. Like, so of course I am very positive because I see all these people doing these cool projects in our OpenSci and outside of our OpenSci, so that makes me positive.
Okay. And yeah, I guess the last question we had from the people was, how does our OpenSci already work or could work together with our initiatives like the R Foundation, R Consortium, Farmverse, OpenStatsWare, and others?
Yeah, so we try to be a very collaborative organization. So we have contacts with other organization, as an organization or individually. So that's something we already do. So I mentioned the OpenStats, we're working on something. That's because we're talking with them. So yeah, we try to be a collaborative. Or so you mentioned the R Consortium. So we got a few R Consortium grants to work on some R OpenSci projects. Like very recently, I worked on packages to help with multilingual Markdown documents. So to publish like multilingual cartoon books, and also to translate, to do a first draft of translation using the DeepL API. So the package that does this DeepL API. First translation, it was a project funded by the R Consortium.
Okay. And then how accurate was that? Was that something where maybe that first draft would be something that could be shared directly, or it required quite a lot of rework?
So not that much of rework, which is interesting. So it's quite good. But then having this automatic first draft, it allows us to concentrate on aspects such as using gender neutral language, or making sure that all the technical R stuff is translated correctly, because that's something that DeepL isn't necessarily very good at. So yeah, it's very useful. It saves a lot of work, but you still need someone, like a human, to look at your automatic translation.
Okay.
And we have a translation guide. You can look it up.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I guess we've managed to get through the questions. So thank you very much for answering them, and also to the people who submitted them. And then you'll be getting
thanks to them, and thanks to you.
Yeah, and then I'm looking forward to your keynote in Salzburg later this year, where I'm sure there'll be a chance for people to ask many more questions.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.